watching right now, we're all good. But they will be properly put onto the Sci-Fi Scarborough YouTube page in the next week or so. So if you want to watch them back, you can. The cameras are on the stage. You can't be seen. Don't worry about it. Possibly the back of your head, but, that's about it. So you're all good.
Right, our next panel, our first panel, should we say, today, comes from a galaxy far, far away.
Okay, now we won't go giving you a long introduction, as writing one was a bit too much effort, especially after the after party last night. Anybody go to that?
Nobody went to the after
it's
party.
just us who's not well behaved. Okay, fair enough. Well, quite frankly, if you haven't heard of Star Wars, then this isn't the talk you're looking for.
Right, so please give a warm SFS welcome to Ninum, or Nine Num, as I correctly pronounced it yesterday. I've fallen back into old habits. Biggs, Darklighter, and Greedo, also known as
Mike Quinn, Garrick Hagan, and Paul Blake.
Now, if you weren't here yesterday, which most of you weren't, these guys are an absolute delight. And we started, as we always do these days, with the quickfire round. Now, we've freshened up the questions for the quickfire round today, so different ones from yesterday. And I think we'll start with, because we started with tomato sauce or brown sauce, I think, yesterday.
Question for you two before we start.
Yes.
Newcastle or Scarborough?
Oh, Scarborough, absolutely.
I don't think I've ever been to Newcastle.
I went to Newcastle on a school trip, and I was driving the bus on the way back, and I got asked to step out and find out where the theatre was. So I went over to this gentleman and said, "Excuse me, sir, do you know whatever the theatre's called?" He went, "We are." I said, "Thank you very much." And I went back to the bus, and the other teacher said to me, "What did he say?" And I said, "I haven't a clue." So definitely Scarborough. Right, I've got a crisp question for you. Salt and vinegar or cheese and onion? Salt and vinegar crisps or cheese and onion crisps?
Salt and vinegar, please. Cheese and onion, please.
Oh, I have to say salt and onion. I don't know. I don't know.
It probably exists.
If they're free, I'll have any of them. Yeah, Twiz is paying for them.
Okay, then, right, so would you like to be well, it's not quite a nice sunny beach scene here, but a sunny day or a nice starry night?
Yes. I think a sunny day followed by a nice starry night, I think.
Nice.
Starry night.
Sunny day all the way.
Oh, nice.
So
Right.
is there a particularly starry night in your little getaway in Spain? And
Yeah, for those who were here yesterday, Garrick is a big fan of the Mediterranean, so...
Mediterranean.
Yes, Mediterranean. Oh, I love the Mediterranean. When you could get the oil off your bathing suit and onto your body.
And
all
as
those
a finale,
jellyfish.
we're all going to wear our bathing suits. We're going to go behind here and change, and we're going to come out, yes, in 20 minutes from now.
We are here in our imagination on a beautiful beachfront.
Right, here's one I think I know the answer to. Reading book or audio book?
Yes, audio, please. That's my second string, audiobooks. So I go for them. I don't know. We have a company called the Story Circle, for anybody who wants to know.
Yes, absolutely. I agree completely. He said.
Yeah, I think reading books, actually. I'm very old-fashioned and traditional about reading, although I have to admit I haven't read much in the last 10 years. I tend to read a book on holiday, and that's about it, and only keep that for the flights. But I do read the occasional thing on tablet or on iPad.
Just off the back of that, because we did have another question that I was curious about. Do you prefer traditional books or Kindles, that sort of thing?
Yeah, well, again, it depends on. I suppose it depends on the book, really. I mean, it sounds a bit snotty, but I've kind of gone back to the classics recently because I haven't read them for so long. So you rediscover.
So Enid Blyton,
Yeah,
famous
absolutely.
five. Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh,
Yeah.
I find, is now offering.
I
quite
tell
a
you
lot.
what, I do get excited about though is a signed book by the author. Those to me are like gold, right?
If you want to listen to a 1,000-page book called Bleak House by Charles Dickens, listen to Miriam Margolyes, who I directed reading Bleak House. You'll never hear a better story so well told.
It has a huge amount of swearing in it, every other paragraph, but it's very entertaining.
I mean, Miriam's the person for the job, let's be honest. Another controversial one, considering where we are. Seaside or countryside?
Seaside all the way, completely, 100%.
You got the chat.
Again, I'm straight down the middle, as the actress said to the bishop, but because I live near the seaside down in Dorset, but I'm also surrounded by countryside, so I'm very lucky. So a bit of both, I'm afraid. What about you, Garrick? Garrick is a Londoner and hasn't left. This is the first time he's left London in 63 years. So,
And I've got a lot of sand in my shoe from walking on that beach. It is so wonderful to see those waves come rolling in just in front of this wonderful building. I'm thrilled to bits. I knew I got very, very cold this morning in for my dip.
Very good. Next one then. This is one of my all-time favourite quickfire questions. What is your favourite dinosaur?
Well, I was going to say Paul Blake, but well,
I'm fairly high up on the list here. Stegosaurus. Yeah, anytime, a Stegosaurus.
Diplodocus.
oh, good heavens, good heavens. Well, I did animate some dinosaurs in Jurassic Park 3, but over there in the audience is Carrie, who was lead puppeteer for Walking with Dinosaurs. So all the ones that she performed
Nice
are
one.
my favourite dinosaurs.
They were spectacular dinosaurs. They were.
Yeah,
Wow.
big things. Yes, Steg and Brachiosaurus. Yeah, there we
That's
go.
the first year nobody said Tyrannosaurus Rex, which
No,
is
they're
kind of
rubbish.
nice because that's the easy answer.
They're so 90s.
If you find yourself down in Dorset at any time, they've discovered down there the biggest fish ever. It's prehistoric and it's about a couple of million years old, but it's huge. It stretches.
I think I've been to that chip shop.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. It's great. Very expensive a billet now, but so that it's worth a visit. That because it's very impressive. About the size of this auditorium from one end to the next.
So, I mean, Lyme Regis and all of that, well, it's the Jurassic Coast, isn't it? Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful area. Right, so we're going to dive a little bit into your careers. Now, we finished yesterday on your work outside of Star Wars, so we're going to pick up a little bit there. Do you know what?
Is there a world outside Star Wars?
Universe. Yeah.
Oh, nobody told me about that.
Oh, you're about to learn some new things. I'm so sorry. So we're going to start with the overachiever on the panel, even though he claims not to leave the house, go on holiday, or ever do anything. So, Mike,
Okay.
having worked for Jim Henson Productions and Lucasfilm, so we'll run through the list we had yesterday. So for those of you who aren't aware, he's worked on The Muppets, Labyrinth, The Dark Crystal, Fraggle Rock. Yay! He doesn't love
love
that.
for the Fraggles.
Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Not me.
Was that not you?
Yeah, I didn't frame him though.
No, you didn't frame him, but
Oh, I
you
thought that was a
worked on it.
question. Sorry. Yes.
Little Shop of Horrors, more Muppets, Toy Story 2, Woody's Roundup, Bugs Life, Jurassic Park 3. That's a lot.
Yeah, and a bunch of other stuff I've forgotten more recently. Yeah, and
We just picked the
Andor
big
and,
things.
we got the Acolyte coming out next month. So yeah, creatures in that. So it's good.
And we tried to wheedle your favourite Muppet out of you yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And you sort of refused. I'd be remiss if I didn't try that again, but perhaps can we widen it out to favourite character from all those movies or favourite role from all those non-Star Wars roles?
Yeah, it's hard because there's been so many. Sometimes the ones you do in the background are the naughty ones because nobody's watching, and you can like try and upstage what's happening in front, and nobody's really paying attention, so you can like get up to all sorts of antics with a puppet in the either at the side of frame or in the background. We did that with Goblins and Labyrinth or any Muppet thing. You know, the thing you're encouraged to try and upstage. So that's where the Quinn Zone came from. So if you're at the side of frame, you're just getting up to naughty things, you're in the Quinn Zone. See, so yeah. So there was a character I did for Sky Television for Children's Channel back in the late '80s, and he was a sort of an alien, blue alien puppet character that I created, and he was like the even wonkier side of myself. So I'm thinking about bringing him back again to do more things with. So he can say the things that even I'm not saying right now, and that's saying something. So yeah, there's always stuff inside us all, isn't there, that we haven't done yet that we'd like to do, right?
So yesterday, when you couldn't name your favourite Muppet for fear of retribution of fur and all sorts of things, it's Miss Piggy is the one who's going to come and do you in, isn't she?
Miss Piggy.
She's going to be there. She's the one you're a bit scared of.
Well, let's see. Depends whose hands she's in, really. You know, who's handling her. So Miss Piggy has a handler. So you know, she changes a lot. But you know, I just don't bring any applesauce with me, and I'm okay. Yeah.
So moving across to you, Garrick, because we talked a little bit about, and you mentioned it again this morning, about your love for audiobooks and your production work and your work on so many of them. What's been the highlight of that side of your career, either performing yourself or producing and directing other actors?
Well, I've had so many wonderful readers. It's really hard. I started quite a long time ago reading books myself, and I read about 200 over the course of many years for various publishers. But when we were doing this, a couple of us thought, let's have our own company and produce dramas of some of the books that our kids like. So we started doing teenage, young adult books called Point Horror Stories, and then we went to Goosebumps, and then there were other sort of frightening tales that we did for various publishers, and this all led on to what was the kind of pinnacle of our early work was working with Philip Pullman, who wrote his Dark Materials, and Philip was just writing the first of the trilogy. And we started casting it among our friends who were doing radio and doing voiceovers and so on. And we had a cast at the very first one of 29 actors. And this, over 10 days, we planned like a movie. When the actors were available, they could come in. They came into the studio on time, and we did it. So as Philip developed from the first book in the trilogy to the second, we followed the life of Lyra. We had a wonderful Lyra. How many of you have heard or read his Dark Materials? Did any? Yay, lovely.
Love for that.
Well, but to see this, Philip said finally when we got to the Amber Spyglass, the last one, Philip, I was calling him while I was doing other work and saying, Philip, we got to do this. They want it badly on. We want us to record immediately. And he said, no, I am not going to record. We got in. I'm on the phone saying, Philip, please finish your corrections. And he said, I'm not going to do this. This is going to be my masterpiece. Or he didn't use the word, but that's what he meant. And indeed, they had to wait until we got everything together for the Amber Spyglass and finally finished it. And this is after about 5 years it took him to complete the trilogy. But that was the beginning of what became, because it gave us a great deal of credit to have done what was a great success as a project. And then we went on. So Right now, I'm doing individual authors, and I get the chance to work with them down the line. And I've worked just recently with Jerry Halliwell from well, everybody might know that she's one of the beautiful Spice Girls. And Jerry has written what she hopes is going to be the first of a series called Rosie Frost. And it's a lovely little book for young readers and older readers too. And she did that over a period whenever she could find time of about a week or 10 days. So from Jerry, then curiously enough, I'm now working with the next week with a writer who's written a book on Formula One. I don't know anything about Formula One, but
It's not baby food.
Quickly.
No, it's not baby food, is it?
Yeah.
But this is a great body of work that you're producing, and so would you say this is now your calling? You know, to in this.
And I'd hope
this
I
role?
still call myself an actor,
Yeah.
but I mean it is a lot of my work.
Yeah.
And so I just feel it's lucky that because actors have these long periods when your agent isn't calling on, you're waiting to hear whether you got the part that you auditioned for 3 weeks ago, and you don't hear. But all of this time, a lot of it is filled up with audio. So what I'm lucky enough.
Well, you've done audio work, haven't
But
you,
guys
Paul?
like Paul Blake.
Yeah, I've done a few audiobooks for the BBC, for Audible and things. But no, Garrick has had a long and, as you can hear, an auspicious career. He also directed quite an up-and-coming young actor in a little-known fantasy series called The Hobbit, which you might have heard, I think it's some book or other, with a young actor called Andy Serkis, and that's, I think that will be pretty interesting to hear too. Yeah, I hope it does well. I'm sure it will.
Andy managed to do we've done all of the Lord of the Rings, and Andy did his famous Gollum for the voice in that, and all the other characters, every single one of which we had to check with the Tolkien expert. Wow. Every single character in the whole Lord of the Rings, and the Silmarillion. For those of you who know Tolkien, that's the book that nobody has read, the Silmarillion.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read the Silmarillion. It's pretty dense. It's pretty dense, isn't it, actually? But yeah, I mean, from both Mike's and Gary's, and mine to a degree, actors tend to, in our day, in the past, we were very, very lucky because I suppose we were enabled not to be out of work for too long. We could move on to the next job more or less within, a month, a couple of months. And we were out of work for a very short period of time. So I suppose we were, from that point of view, we were very lucky. I mean, from my own point of view, I was lucky towards the sort of, I don't act anymore. I retired about 5 years ago. But I ran a theatre down south called the Tivoli Theatre. And that gave, because a lot of actors direct if they feel the calling to do that. And we specialized in doing comedy, and we were heavily into Feydeau, the French writer. So we did a lot of farces, a couple of which we took to the West End, and we played the Mermaid Theatre for a couple of months. So that was pretty fulfilling too. But actors do tend to diversify. But we were, I suppose, a golden period. And I mean, both these guys are still steaming ahead with their careers and doing great things. But there was a great deal of luck involved too.
Now, let's pull it back round to Star Wars, I guess. Now, we touched on this yesterday, but you had a rather unusual first encounter with George Lucas. Tell us a little bit about how that went down.
Yeah, it's a bit apocryphal now, but I got the job in Star Wars through Anthony Daniels, who was playing C-3PO. We'd been working at the BBC for a kids series called Jack and Nori, which you'll remember, which is a sort of storybook series. But we did the Christmas special, and we'd finished filming it, and about a week later, he rang me up and said, I'm doing this sci-fi film. Remember, this is 1976. I'm doing this sci-fi film, and I'm playing a robot, and the director's desperate for some other crappy actors. Would you be interested? So I said, yeah, absolutely. How much? And he said, well, you'll be lucky to get paid. But anyway, I said, yeah, sure, I'd love to do it. And he said, well, you have to pop along to Elstree Studios and see the director. I said, oh, fine. So I didn't think anything more about it. And about a month later, I got the call and found myself on a train going very early in the morning to Elstree Studios, just on the outskirts of London. And so I arrived at the studios really early and walked onto the big sound stage, there was nothing there apart from right in the corner of the sound stage, there was a mock-up of the Millennium Falcon and sand all around it, and massive arc lights just sort of beaming down on it, but nobody around at all, but one bloke in the corner. And so I went up to him and I said, do you know anything about this movie that they're filming here? Oh, you couldn't get me a cup of coffee, could you? I'm desperate. I've just come from London. I've had no breakfast, and yeah, any chance of a cup of coffee? He said, yeah. So he went off, got me a cup of coffee, and I was having a couple of sips, and I said, yeah, it's some film called. I think they sent me the script, and it's called Blue Harvest or something like that. But there's the guy I'm supposed to see is a man called. Oh God, what's his name? George. He said, I'm George Lucas. And so I'd asked George Lucas to get me a coffee, virtually treated him as the PA, sent him off God knows where into the canteen at 8:30 in the morning, and he came back with a coffee and for some reason employed me after that. God knows why, but I owe him that debt to being here to this day. That was 50 years
Did
ago.
he make a good cup of coffee, though?
Appalling. It was the worst cup of coffee I've ever had.
At least he can make films, I suppose. So there we go. So let's talk a bit about your costumes, because we didn't really. I mean, I'm assuming Garrett got it a bit easier, not being in the full face,
Costumes?
Costumes, yeah. I mean, because you got the spacesuit, but
I walked into the Angels, I think it was, just in Soho, in Soho, Charing Cross Road, I think it was. Anyway, I walked in there, and John Mollo was there, the designer for costumes, and Mark. And Mark and I hadn't met, and being Mark and being me, we hugged and he said, hey, you're playing Biggs. And I didn't really know who Biggs was. I hadn't had much. I had a few, I don't even think I'd had the script. I'd been told I was playing it because I got 7 in George was marking actors out of 10. And my agent had said, apparently you got a 7, and they want you to do a character called Biggs. So Mark and I had this hug, and he said, good God, you've got one of the best parts. You die. I don't, Mark, wait, he said, yeah, it's a lovely death. And because in our experience, if you died, I mean, there was a lot of attention paid. People bent over your body and wept, and so I felt really proud. Well, then we started to assemble my costume. Now, back to the costume. And I had been talking to George about being in the desert, because I'd done a film in the desert in Libya and Morocco, and I'd been there a long time, and somehow or other we got along to a cape. And so with this wonderful cape, we started constructing this. John Mollo grabbed pieces from the costumier, got these lovely leather boots, dark trousers, Russian type of shirt, and I looked really dashing, if I do say so myself, like a Russian pilot. Russian shirt and a flyer's cape. I mean, it was good. Unfortunately, as we all know, that costume never appeared in film. That was a scene that we did in Tunisia, the very first week of the film, and it's not there. You can all see it, of course, on the DVD. You can see it on YouTube, and it's now called the cut scene. But that costume is to me one of the nicest costumes in the first picture, and I was jolly lucky to have it and to play Biggs. That the extraordinary tale of this scene you all may know, but it is there for all to see, and most of you who have come up to talk to me say you'd like it back. So that was that dashing costume, and you can see it on. Actually, nobody's come up with a model of it, but they have a model of it. And what you see is my pilot's costume, which was a very simple uniform, which we think came from space to from Stanley Kubrick. Yeah. A Space Odyssey. Yeah. We think it did, but it was probably a janitor's uniform.
But you were the original space cape, before Lando, before Billy D had his cape wardrobe. So you set the trend. He learned from you. Yeah, right.
Well,
I mean,
learn from the best.
fair
clearly.
enough, right?
So, I mean, for the two of you, though, being, in prosthetics, did that take long to put on? I think I heard something with Anthony Daniels last year. He said originally C-3PO, they took 5 hours to get him on. Well, he said his costume did, but by the end of the prequels, they've got it down to 7 minutes.
Oh, no, I think
because of changing of the costumes. But how long did yours take?
No, mine was very easy. In the early days, we had what was called a life mask, just for the mask, which you sit in a chair for about an hour, and they apply plaster of Paris to your face, which hardens, and then the back, and then they pour in a rubber, and that forms the shape of your head, and then they would hand that over to the modelers, who would develop whatever character that they would come up with. But then, of course, fast forward to today, you would be in costume now, because they build it up, the entire thing, from your body. And those prosthetics would take 5-6 hours, so you'd be there very early in the morning. The worst thing about that is you couldn't go to lunch or anything like that, and you'd have to be in the thing all day. And then at the end of the day, you'd be in makeup for 2 hours to get the thing off. So I was comparatively lucky. And actually, what's interesting too is that we, who were in those early franchises, learn more from each other about what we did then than we ever knew then, because you do the thing and then you move on to another job or whatever. So over the years, we've learned a huge amount. In fact, only recently I learned that I was with Jason Joyner, of all people, who's a promoter, and he said, "Do you know what happened to your costume after Greedo died?" I said, "I have no idea. I presume it was just burnt or thrown away, because everything else was in Elstree in those days." And he said, no. He said they were so strapped for cash. Part of your jerkin was Carrie's slave Leia costumes. So I never knew that Greedo also became part of Carrie's costume.
Talking about Jason Joyner, this is what happens when actors get together. Somebody mentioned something, and then we all riff off on that night. But Jason Joyner, a big convention organizer, pulled a trick on me. He got me to the Isle of Wight, and he said, "I have had a boy come up to me with a piece of your helmet, the checkerboard pattern on the side, a little bit." And I said, "What's the story?" He said, "The boy found it in the back of Elstree. They'd thrown it out, like Paul said, and it was there on the heap, and he got it home. And he's given it to me, and I've got it on display here at the back of the hall there, and we're going to take photographs, and everybody can come up." I said, "Fantastic, a piece of the checkerboard pattern. I know that was George's favorite helmet." And so there I was, having my picture taken all day, and it was a very prestigious, the Isle of Wight, our cinematographer came, and he was signing photographs, and I was there getting my picture taken with this piece of helmet. And, inevitably, somebody came up to me. He said, "You know that Jason Joyner?" I said, "Yeah, of course." He said, "He's a prop maker." Now, what does that tell you? Well, what do you mean? It tells you that he made this piece of helmet and stuck it. And I had been taken, and I'll never be taken again like that.
Mike, let's bring it round to 9 Num, as we established yesterday was the correct pronunciation.
9 Num, like number 9. Yeah, so, I mean, basically, though, as far as costume, creatures and that kind of thing goes, I think you can break them down into 4 types. So there's like the hand puppet kind, which is sort of like a glorified Muppet in a way, which is worked with your hand, which was how I did the original Nine Num in Return of the Jedi, and how Yoda was performed. So, and sort of an animatronic hand puppet. So usually your hand works the mouth, and then the face is supplemented by mechanisms, by cable controls for the eyes and brows and things like that. So that's one kind. Then we have another kind, which now we call the pull-on masks, which is what you would have had for Greedo, which is essentially a pull-on mask, probably with a joint at the back. And then it's often, like you said, cast around a head and shoulders. And then usually they fit most people to some degree or other. And then we have, of course, the prosthetics, which is a makeup application, usually applied in sections to an actor's face. And as you said, they're stuck in there all day. And then we have animatronic creatures, which can be anything from a fully mechanical creature to a mask that's worn but has animatronic features, which is how Nine Num was done in the last 3 films. So that's kind of how it all breaks down, essentially. But even for my guy, my new last trilogy, they still had to take a cast of me for the helmet to fit, and then they built the mechanisms on top of that. And then the creature skull goes on top of that again, and then there's like a half-inch of foam latex cast on top of that.
So whilst they were doing all of that, were you not sort of thinking, look, just give me the puppet, it's easier, I'll just...
Interesting. I mean, I had to relinquish control of the face to my face puppeteer. But we'd rehearsed without the head on, so I could, at least now I had legs and I could walk among the actors and be a little more part of the scene. But it also meant that I could fall over a lot as well, which I did, which hurt, because when you get the mask on, you have vision problems, and after about 30 seconds, everything fogs up, and you have to do everything. You have to memorize your steps, as to where you go, and sort of nonchalantly, there's the table, okay, yeah, I know where I am now, and memorize where everybody is so that you're looking in the right place. But we also have, now you probably didn't have this, I bet, when doing Greedo. Could you hear through that mask? Yeah, see, that's the thing, you can't really hear very well, so you have sensory deprivation. And even getting oxygen can be difficult sometimes. So what we do for characters like Nine Num that are animatronic heads, we have an earpiece so the person outside can talk to us and say, watch out, someone's about to come by with a 2x4, don't step back or whatever. So, and they can direct us, change your eye line slightly to the left so that you're looking just past the lens and that kind of thing, or you're looking the wrong side of camera. Sometimes they shoot with 3 cameras and you don't know where they all are, you can't see. So it's really difficult. So it's definitely a collaboration, but I always say, watch my face during the rehearsals, because this is what I want, this is what I'm thinking, these are the expressions I want, and then I'll have the face puppeteer replicate that when we got the head on. So.
Right, well, just before Claire
I'm
goes
gonna
down to get some questions from down there, and because most of you weren't here yesterday, we probably should address the elephant in the room, which was who shot first. So
before
back over to you,
the tide's
Paul.
coming in, we better talk fast.
So this scene, as we talked about, and probably everybody here knows, has slipped into infamy because of the various changes. I think we lost track of how many times it had been adjusted now. Let's have your take as somebody who was there.
Yeah, I was there. We were this close. How could I miss? Yeah, I mean, I'm lucky that it's so controversial and talked about to this day. And of course, now, what's great is that you all have an opinion on it, which you are not backward in coming forward to inform me about on most days of my life. And in fact, I answer the question normally before people ask it, because I know they want to ask, which is fair enough. In the original script, all it said was we play the scene, and it was quite a long scene, and in parenthesis, right at the end, it says, Han shoots the alien. I didn't even have a name in those days on the cast list. I was just the alien. And that's how we did it. And of course, that rumbled on merrily along for 10 years. The scene stood as it was. But then I think about 10 years later, George was hassled by the Deep South in America to be a bit more politically correct with the Han Solo character, and didn't want him to be quite such the space cowboy that he is. And he changed it once, and then fans complained about that, and then he changed it again. So he was influenced by what people thought and said. But his last incarnation of his thoughts on it was about 4 or 5 years ago, just before COVID, when somebody had asked him the inevitable, why have you changed it? I think we shoot at the same time. And he said, well, I always wanted Han Solo to be much more like John Wayne was in cowboy movies, in that he would go into the barroom scene, which is essentially what the cantina was, and he would always give the bad guy the chance to go for his gun before he shot him. And that was George's final explanation of why he gives Greedo a chance to shoot. Personally, I'm with the hand shot first. How could I miss? If I'd shot him then, I'd have run off with Princess Leia. I keep telling Harrison Ford I'm responsible for his career. Greedo would have been Indiana Jones to this day. I mean, I should have shot him when I had the chance, really. But that's my thoughts.
Oh, that's an alternative universe that needs exploring sometime. Right, let's throw it over to you guys. Claire's hiding at the back with the microphone. If you've got a question, don't be shy for any of these guys. Stick your hand in the air, and then Claire will come and hunt you down. Got one down the front here,
right
Claire.
down the front.
Just come
There's
on
a
down.
ghost on the balcony that has a question.
Yeah, I've been doing this for 5 years now, and I'm
Yeah.
sure this place is still haunted.
Oh, it
I've not
is.
seen one yet, but there you go. And I know our predecessor Jerry's always up there somewhere watching us. I'll pass that one across to you guys.
My question is, when you were all teenagers at school planning what exams you were going to take, what careers did you see yourselves doing at that age, and what actually ended up taking you down the acting path?
I mean, for me, it was terror about finding any career whatsoever. But I was kind of lucky. I got into it all as a teenager, when I was actually pre-teenage, when I was 12. Because like everybody in the 60s, we played guitar. I'm a Brummie, and we were like Liverpudlians, like people up north. We all learned guitar and sang a bit. And we used to practice. I used to practice with a couple of mates in the front room of my friend's house. And his dad was a club organist doing all the variety clubs up north and down south and in London. And one day he came into our rehearsal and said, well, that harmony wasn't too bad. What about coming along to one of my next venues? We were 12 years old at the time, and there were 3 of us. And he said, come and do a bill. So that's kind of how I got into it. We did a working man's club, and then we did another one, and we weren't so bad that we were pulled off with a hook. So, and we always found ourselves on the sort of the bottom of the bill. There'd be sort of Max Wall or Max Bygraves or Wilson, Keppel and Betty. I was even on a bill with Wilson, Keppel and Betty, the guys who did the sand dance, at the age of 12. So it was extraordinary life for me. And I was still at school at the time, doing exams during the day. So when I eventually left school and scraped my way into university and did drama and theatre there, I'd had a little bit of experience in performing, and I suppose that's what pushed me forward into wanting to do it.
Tell me you worked with Old Mother Riley.
I did.
Yes,
Nat
yes.
Jackley. Yes, I did. Nat
Brilliant.
Jackley. I did.
Arthur
Max
Lucan.
Wall was on the same bill. I mean, they were all top of the bills, and we were.
Wow.
The best bill I was
Fantastic.
ever on was was with a monkey act, and the monkey, which was this really angry monkey in the dressing room, used to smoke a cigar in the dressing room. And we'd be up on the other end, and there was this monkey up the other end, and his trainer. And this monkey was the foul-mouthed, foulest. You wouldn't go near it because it would show it would growl at you. So he thought, my God, our lives are, you wouldn't go near it. And this monkey would wait at the side of the stage like this. And as soon as it got on stage, the most charming monkey that ever come. So this monkey knew what it was doing.
Better than ours, apparently. I wish we'd had his trainer. Well, the question was now. What was the question?
But you want the route in? The route. I was doing radio in Toronto, Canada. And I was very young. I was about 7 or 8. I went on through radio, and then I was at a teacher called Josephine Barrington, who was English, and she was teaching me how to speak. And they had an audition for a wonderful, one of the most famous directors in the world at the time, Tyrone Guthrie. And somehow or other, because they were starting a theater in Canada called the Stratford Shakespearean Festival. I'm giving a plug. One of the finest theaters now in the world. And anyway, Guthrie hired me at the age of 11 or something. We all got hooked into this young. And he hired me to go up to Stratford to rehearse with Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he didn't call him Obi-Wan Kenobi at that point. It was Alec Guinness playing Richard III, and so I got a start playing what I thought would be the page, holding Alec Guinness's long cape, because he was Richard III and it was very traditional medieval costume. So I carried that for a few days, and then somehow or other, I don't know how, Alec Guinness decided that because I spoke sort of English, Canadian sort of English, and had dark hair. At that time, I had hair, thank you. And he decided I should be playing the Prince of Wales. And the Prince of Wales and Richard III begins the play very early on in a wonderful scene. I had a cape myself that was about 20 feet long, and a bunch of soldiers bringing it up onto the stage. The stage is an apron stage, what they call an apron. Not quite like Alan Ayckbourn. It's an apron stretching out, not a circular stage. So I came up from what they call the vomitorium, which is a tunnel, surrounded by soldiers and flags. It was a bit like out of German expressionist flags, Albert Speer's flags, long flags. And all these flags, I came to the center of the apron, all these flags lowered at my feet. Then the soldiers dragged them back like the wings or the points of a star coming back at my feet. It was an incredible Tyrone Guthrie entrance, the kind of thing Guthrie was famous for. So there I was, center stage on the Stratford stage, early in the play, and Guinness was welcoming me as the Prince of Wales to London. He came up and kissed my hand. Now, that was my first meeting with Obi-Wan Kenobi. The terrible thing was, just finish this, the terrible thing was that another line, slightly later in the scene, Guinness has a little aside, which he says, your brother, the brother says something, and he says, you're a clever little. And not quite like, he says something like, sweet flowers grow slow, weeds make haste. Because he's made some comment about his height, and the flowers grow slow, weeds, which he's now tall, haste. That was and Guinness, in his mind, I think, thought that was, and it was, his first laugh in the play. Nice way to start Richard off. Not an evil man, a man who can make a cute aside. Well then, my next line was, what say you, uncle? And, of course, your natural hear somebody talking, you say, well, what did you say? Quickly. Which I did the first night. And Guinness, after I in my train out through the middle door, out behind me, the scene was over, he grabbed hold of me, and he said, don't come in quickly. Well, unfortunately, I did it the second night. The second night, he said, if you do it again, you're out. And having been thrust into the role anyway, I knew he had the power to do that. Of course he did. He was the most famous actor in the world, practically. And he could have got rid of me just like that. So I played it very carefully from then on in, all through the season. And at the end of the season, I thought 13 of my friends want an autograph on the program. He still hates me. But I took my courage in my hand, and I knocked on his door. I gave him 13 to sign. Now, you know how actors hate to sign for autographs. No, we don't. We love it. But he did. He signed them all for me, and he wrote on my photograph, my own photograph of him, he wrote a very nice thing, a complimentary thing on the photograph. So he obviously forgave me and said, may you one day play the king. I thought that is really, really sweet. So we made it up, but that was my start in what became a sort of career.
That's amazing. I love that. Just really quickly. As a kid, I had always played with puppets and things, but I was a big Disney fan, so I would do a lot of drawings and cartoons in general, but I did love Disney stuff. So in school and on my books, I was always drawing Disney characters instead of doing what I was supposed to be doing. But then Muppet Show came along in '76, and I became obsessed with these living cartoons, basically. So I did everything I could to learn about how they were worked and made, and I would make my own puppets. And I was the first kid in my school to take needlework so I could make puppets on school time. Hey, very smart. The only boy in a class full of girls, you know. How dumb is that?
Also smart.
Yeah, right. So I kind of transitioned from that into Muppets. I always think had Jim Henson not come along, perhaps I would have become an animator or a cartoonist or something. If I'd kept it up, I might have even become good at that. I wasn't good at the time, but I just copied stuff a lot. But as the years went on, I of course worked for Jim Henson and for Pixar and for Lucasfilm. And oddly, everything is owned by Disney now anyway. So it all goes back to Disney. So it's crazy, yeah. And I got into animation, 3D animation later on, but my puppetry informed my animation. It helped me to be an animator, and vice versa. Once I'd learned more about animation, that helped my puppetry afterwards as well, and still does to this day. So it's all connected. I couldn't work a regular job. I'd get fired after a few hours anyway, so it's not like I can do anything else. So even like all of us, from a young teenager, 12, 13 years old, that was it. That was what I was going to do. So, yeah.
Have we got time we might have time for one more quick question. You're down there on the front, yeah?
Oh, very comfortable on that chair. Hang on a second.
Just quickly to Paul, do you think George made Han shoot first because you made him get a cup of coffee?
Absolutely, I'm sure that's he had it in for me from the start, I think. How dare he get him to shoot me first?
I'll show him.
Absolutely, he thought, I'm just going to wait my time.
How do you like that coffee?
Actually, they nearly killed me anyway because the scene, nobody shot at all, of course.
Just stay there and do that one.
Okay, thank you.
It's the ghost.
Because nobody shot at all, because it was a dummy that was put in the seat and had explosive put in it. So
It was the other dummy.
Yeah, it was a melt dummy, yeah.
But,
Right.
Also, for Garrick and Mike, when you're doing all your different characters, either in your books or in your puppetry, do you ever do the wrong voice with the wrong puppet?
Oh, the wrong voice with the wrong character. Only for fun, sometimes. It's fun to mess with people's perceptions. Yeah, go against character or something.
I'm particularly, I try not to make it too difficult for myself, and I don't do a lot of different voices in an audiobook. I used to mark it and try, but there are much cleverer voice artists who do all those voices, and I have lots of friends and I let them do that. And somebody like Miriam Margulies, who I mentioned, can she halfway through Bleak House, she said, well, is this number 44 or number 48? It's just remarkable what she can do. And there are people like that can alter their voice, but I don't. But Wrong characters? I suppose all the wrong characters. You know, there was a time when I seemed to do a lot of mangas. And I looked through my on my IMDb, and all those mangas are listed. Well, a lot of them are adult mangas. Nobody should be looking at them. I was doing voices for the weirdest things, I can tell you that. But that was only part of my vast voice experience.
Yeah, and as far as Muppets and puppet characters go, I always go back to something that Frank Oz would say, and that is that he does characters, not voices. You know, even though he's known for doing all these different character voices, it's always character first, and that's where the voice comes from. So once you have that puppet on, you're kind of already there, you know, and if it's part of you anyway, you don't really have to look that far to get back into that character. So it doesn't really happen that often. So.
Woody Allen made a whole movie out of doing mispronounced voices from Japanese dubbing films that he had people doing them at the wrong time and with the wrong intervals and with the wrong accent on. So there's a whole movie about that.
There's also a part of our business which ambience dubbing, which we did for a while along. And I remember doing a scene in The English Patient, and at one point, somehow or other, my voice came out loud and clear. So I often say I was in The English Patient, but only as a line. I had a line because Juliette Binoche was putting sick patients to bed, and can I have a kiss too, ma'am? And it's something like that. But I made that up at the time, and I'm in The English Patient somewhere.
I think you were in the 39 Steps, right? What causes Pippin Poultry?
Yes.
Is that you? Yeah.
I'm old enough to have been in the 30. Actually, I saw the 39 Steps the other day, and Peter Donat was somebody I understudied at Stratford for years later on in my life, and his uncle, Robert Donat, I feel I'm connected to him in a way.
Fantastic. Well, that was amazing because we've actually run about 10 minutes over there. So no, it's fantastic.
we're not
Wonderful
sorry.
stuff. So thank you for entertaining us. Ladies and gentlemen, let's say thank you to our Star Wars panel. Garrett Kagan,
Thank you
Paul
very
Blake,
much.
Mike Quinn.
Terrific. Thank you. It's been great to be here.
And we've got Doctor Who coming up in about 5 or 10 minutes now, so stay for that. But Right, who stayed on since the last panel? Let's see the hands. Oh, well done, you stars. Now, I forgot to ask you this earlier on, because most of you weren't here yesterday. Do we have anybody who's come to all 10 Sci-Fi Scarboroughs? Because we had one person yesterday who'd come to all 10.
No.
Squinting into the light.
Oh, yeah, we've got one there.
Oh,
That's
respect,
amazing.
respect. That's great stuff. Right, so it's our Doctor Who panel, and if you were here yesterday for this one, you'll know that these guys are an absolute delight because they come to us from across time and space from the longest-running television show in this country, Doctor Who.
And this time it's time to celebrate the second Doctor's era. So our guests today include 3 people who know that particular Doctor very well.
So we've got Fraser Hines as Jamie McCrimmon, Wendy Padbury as Zoe Herriot, and Michael Troughton, son of the Doctor, and playing the Doctor himself in Big Finish. Let's welcome them on. Good to see you all again. Right, so
are the microphones working today?
Yes. Now they did have a look at them after yesterday's session, and they were set up wrong, so they've fixed them. So that's good news. So you should have a couple of them over there, hopefully. Right. So we have a bit.
Yeah, we still only got 4 between us, unfortunately.
So we had a little bit of an icebreaker yesterday that we've made a bit of a tradition at Sci-Fi Scarborough, which is the quick fire round, and we've come up with some new ones for today.
Ooh,
so after yesterday, I think we opened with tomato sauce or brown sauce, but today we're going to go for a crisp-related question: salt and vinegar or cheese and onion?
Salt and vinegar.
Cheese and onion. Cheese and onion.
And you've got another mic down there, by the way, I hope.
Another microphone there. Okay. Well, yesterday you all established that you were savoury rather than sweet people, so we had to go down the crisp route. So, sunny day or a nice starry night, which would you prefer?
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
A nice starry night.
Right. There you go. We can pick you up on the stream then.
A nice starry night.
A nice sunny day.
Nice sunny day.
Nice.
Nice.
We've saved this one for you because we didn't ask the last panel this one. Daleks or Cybermen?
What do we like?
Well, which do you prefer? But you can play it any way you like, or you can interpret it any way you like.
Well, I never met a Dalek properly in the show. No. So I am going to say Cybermen.
Nice.
Dalek.
I'm going to say I'm going to say Dalek because I drove one when I was 12 years old.
Was that like the best day of your life?
Yeah.
Okay, so now especially because I know a lot of you do work for Big Finish, but would you prefer a reading book or an audio book?
I prefer to read.
Read.
Read every time because I actually do audiobooks all day in my home studio, so I'm not going to listen to them, am I?
Let's put a twist on that. I asked the others as well. So if you're all readers, do you prefer a traditional book or a Kindle book?
Oh, traditional paper, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I quite like both, to be honest. I love to read a Kindle, in the sense that you can put lots and lots of lovely fiction books in there for holidays. But if it's a factual book, not a Kindle, a proper book.
Proper book, which makes complete and total sense. A day out at the seaside or the countryside? And no one's going to get upset from Scarborough, are they?
Fraser, are you like contractually obliged to say countryside because of your Emmerdale career, or?
Yeah, that reminds me of work, so I'll say seaside.
I don't know. I like both, but let's say countryside. I think countryside, especially in the UK. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, so diverse, isn't
Yeah.
it? So different. I like both, but I like the countryside because I live at the seaside. So, yeah, I like to go inland.
Okay, next one. This is always a controversial one. Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No.
Yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I am with you.
Absolutely.
What's the verdict
yeah.
down there?
What?
Pineapple and pizza?
I don't understand the problem with pineapple on a pizza. What's the problem? What other things? Go on then.
When I was a kid, we used to have school meals, and there was a gammon with pineapple on the top, and it made me want to reach.
Me too. Yeah.
Gammon and pineapple is absolutely delicious. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Me too. Definitely.
What is it that
I
sounds
don't
Stranger
get it.
Things?
And
Try
pork and
before
apple
you
sauce.
deny.
No, that's all right. Pork and apple sauce is okay. It's just that combination
Yeah.
of pineapple on that big round piece of gammon. Yes.
It's delicious. I don't know what's wrong with you.
Who doesn't like gammon and pineapple? There are a few.
No, there's two people. Come on.
Okay, so before we start any fisticuffs, I'm gonna come in. So now we talked a lot about Doctor Who yesterday. We finished up having talked a little bit about your careers outside of Doctor Who, and one thing we didn't bring up, which luckily one of our audience members did, was Michael, the New Statesman. Now, you're the second person we've had on stage who's worked with Rick Mayall. I think you've had very different experiences. both enjoyable.
Both enjoyable,
So,
right.
pre-COVID, we had Chris Rankin,
Oh, yeah.
who
yeah.
was in, he played Percy Weasley in Harry Potter.
Oh, right.
And
yes,
so
yeah.
he was telling us how the role of Peeves the Poltergeist was cast.
Yeah.
And it was cast with Rick Mayall. And he said at 15 a week in a crypt with Rick Mayall.
Right.
Which was an experience at 15.
I bet, yeah.
But he said, obviously, he said,
Yeah.
as much as we'd all love to see the film, I think with him in it,
Yeah.
it did become the Rick Mayall show,
Right.
which is why they probably had to cut, which you can understand because he's larger than life. But how was it for you working with him? And
It
being
was.
a part of that?
I mean, it was a dream to get a sitcom like that. Because I hadn't done much comedy before then, really. A few on stage and things like that. And I'd done something for Yorkshire Television, a drama series, in which the casting director saw that particular character, really, the sort of upper-class twit to talk like this all the time. And they encouraged me to go and see the director, and I got the part. But what was really lovely was we had 3 weeks with the scriptwriters, really talking about what the setup would be in the office and how we thought it would go. And Rick he's just such an imaginative, or was, unfortunately, such an imaginative actor. Because primarily, I think he was an actor. I think he was a better actor than he was a comedian, to be honest, at times, because he was able to produce these wonderful characters. I love Bottom, and I was absolutely mad about the young ones. That was just my favourite. But he moved on from that, especially when he got to do The New Statesman. And he took on something that he wasn't quite sure about to begin with. And it was quite a big thing. It was very anti-government, anti-Tory at the time. And there were a lot of solicitors, a lot of, making sure that the scripts were okay. But to work with him, he was one of the most generous and lovely people to work with. A lot of famous actors and comedians can be, it's my show and I get the laughs, and you must remember that. He wasn't like that at all. He was incredibly generous. He taught me a huge amount about comedy. And I became a really good friend of his. He really was a lovely man. And he wasn't as mad as everybody thinks he was either. It was all a wonderful, brilliant act. He was actually quite serious about comedy. During rehearsals, he would be very meticulous about the way he thought it would go. He'd go through a script and he would basically mark out where the laughs were. And that would be the rhythm of the scene. And the more I looked at it that way, the more I realized what a clever way of dealing with a scene was. There was a hiatus. He'd call it, and we say that line, and woof, and you wait, and then you go on to the next. And he taught me so much about timing as well. A great man, and he died far too young. It was absolute tragedy. He had so much more to do. But, you know, that's life.
I wonder whether that's where his Blackadder punchline came from with the wolf, but there you go. But moving on to Wendy, because you...
Did you ever see the
American
Werewolf in London?
Say again, sorry?
The American Werewolf in London, the film.
Oh, yeah.
Rick's in that.
Yeah.
I did not
With
know
no
that.
lines, no dialogue.
He basically is, you know when they come into the pub and everybody stops? Yeah. He's one of the guys who, he spat
the road,
beer.
lads.
He spat it out, and that was it. That was all he did. It was brilliant. I love that movie.
That was one of the films that terrified me as a child, so I kind of avoided it really. But there you go. But Wendy, you've sort of moved from an acting career into a career as a theatrical agent, and I think at one point you were all about moving forward, if I read correctly, through some of the sources. Tell us a little bit about the highlights of that and what appealed to that for you.
The highlights of being an agent.
Well, you know.
Hang on a minute. Let me have a think. No. It was it was interesting. I'm not sure how I got into it. I just knew that. Well, I know exactly. Actually, I did an episode of The Bill, and I really didn't enjoy myself at all. And I thought, why am I waiting for work if when I get it, I'm not going to enjoy it, when there are enough actors out there who will do the work. So I decided I wasn't going to do acting anymore. And then I sat around for a year going, oh, hang on a minute. I haven't got a career. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And somebody said to me, you'd make a good agent. And I said, don't be ridiculous. That's a grown-up job. I can't do a grown-up job. I've never been in an office. And also, you've got to look after actors. Hang on. But anyway, to cut a long story short, I did. And it was a fascinating job, an exhausting job. Really, really exhausting.
How long were you an agent?
15 years. Yeah. And it was, it was interesting, but it's not a 9 to 5. No. It's a 9 to 5, and then you get in the car and you drive to Sheffield and you see a client. And I was probably out at least 4 nights a week out of the week. So it was exhausting. Rewarding. I mean, the reward was if you were able to suggest one of your clients for a job and they got the job, that was my high. Rather than me getting a job when I was an actor, it was getting a job for one of your clients. And
same excitement.
It's exactly the same excitement, yeah. So it was a really, really interesting job.
I always remember the excitement of getting a job. I don't know whether you were the same. And you go, well, wonderful, I got the job. And you think, oh, now I've got to do it.
Yeah.
Did you ever have that? Yeah.
Because I used to say to clients, you got the job, and they'd go, that is brilliant. And then they go, when do we start filming? I go, a week on Friday. Oh, a week on Friday. I don't know whether I'm free. It's like, oh, come on. Give me a break.
This sounds like my
Can I have
daughter.
next Tuesday off?
Yeah, can I have next Tuesday off? Yeah. No.
And just before we bring it round onto Doctor Who, just staying with that theme of non-Doctor Who stuff, obviously you've got this wonderful long-running role in Emmerdale that we talked about yesterday that I'm sure a lot of people here will remember Joe Sugden very, very fondly. I mean, what were the highlights of that for you? Because going from Doctor Who and then moving on and then going into such a long-running soap like that, Emmerdale Farm, as we used to call it in the good old days. Tell us a little bit about that and that transition.
It was hard work. It really was. Because the script would say Matt and Joe working, because they didn't know what the farmer was doing till he turned up on that day. So if he was sheep dipping, we had to do the sheep dipping. We didn't stop him working. I would do the dialogue, and then he would go back to driving a combine. And there was one day we were shearing sheep, and you had to sort of adapt the dialogue. And I had this sheep on its back like that with its legs in the air, and I was saying, anyway, talking of Ma, and I just couldn't say this line because it's a sheep line with its legs in the air. So talking to Mum, and so you had to sort of change the lines around. No, you did.
Really?
Yes. No,
Fair
and if you're doing a milking scene, we hated milking scenes because they're always last thing at night. You had to know your lines upside down, back to front, because you go in between two cows to feed them, and then they'd lock their bums together, and you couldn't say, "Excuse me, this cow, I can't get out." You have to go, "Hey, get over, Daisy, move your bum." Anyway, Matt, what I was talking about was we'll go down to a pub tonight and have a drink and get over. And you just had to know your lines.
Do you know, I had no idea it was a working farm. I mean, it was a... I had no idea. Wow.
They built a new one.
Yeah. There's no animals now. Oh, no.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we used to love the summer driving the combine harvester in T-shirts and dark glasses and all macho. Yeah, we loved it. That was great.
So, and it was outside of the Woolpack in 1992 that you got your big red book.
Yes, I know.
Does anybody remember This Is Your Life? The older book, yes.
Yeah, because my wife got a couple of phone calls and she was always talking. All right, and then I looked at my little pigeonhole at the rehearsal room. I thought, oh, got next week off. So I went to a travel agent. I came and said, "Darling, we're going on holiday next week." She went, "Why?" I went, "I've got a week off." She went, "Oh, I've got to do some shopping." I said, "What?" I've got to, and she jumped in the car and she drove to a phone box because no mobiles, and she rang Morag, our producer. "What have you done? You've given him the week off and he's taking me on holiday. We can't have the week off. He's got This Is Your Life." "Yes, I know that, but he doesn't." So I got back to the next day. I thought, oh, shavings. I'm working next week. I've got 2 days filming. Oh. So I went to Doncaster Races and then finished at lunchtime and drove back down. And we did this scene with Clive Hornby. And the director said, "Yeah, very good. One more take." I said, "Oh, all right, Clive." And halfway through the second take, Madeline Howard came out of the Woolpack and most of the car. I went, "Anyway, what are they doing? They're ruining this take." What they do? And then suddenly, it dawned on me because Michael Aspel came out and he said, "Fraser, this is your..." I said, "Oh, what about the scene? I've learnt 2 scenes now." And they said, "Oh, no, they were just pretend scenes." "Oh, you could have actually just given me 3 lines instead of reams of stuff." Yes, I had to learn the bloody stuff, you know. But it was good fun. And of course, you know, Morag, the producer, took me out for supper. And she said, "Stop thinking who you're going to meet." I said, "Well, who am I going to meet? What skeletons?" And my wife had arranged a lot of my ex-girlfriends to come on, you know, Susan George and people like that, and Lisa Goddard. And very kind of her to arrange a who's who or who's what of Fraser's love life. But it was good fun. No, it was.
Right, fantastic. Well, let's bring it back round to Doctor Who, and perhaps you can start, Fraser, with a little bit about how you got the role. And now, we got a new audience yesterday, but you talked a lot, all of you, about the camaraderie between the cast, running right the way past your run in the 60s and on to reappearances. But there was a feeling that there was a different sort of character needed after that transition from William Hartnell. Tell us a little bit about how you got the role, because, as we said yesterday, it wasn't your first audition on Doctor Who, wasn't it?
No, I'd auditioned for Ben, and my Cockney accent was sounding more Scottish, I think, so I didn't get a part. And then about a month or 6 weeks later, I got a phone call. My agent said, "Innes Laurie wants to see you at Shepherd's Bush House." So I went to see you, and "Hello, Fred, old boy." Sean, who was head of drama, I'd worked with from a little boy, The Silver Sword, Run to Earth, Hunting Town, all these sort of Sunday morning serials. He said, "Sean says you can do a Scottish accent." I said, "Yeah, oh yeah, my mother's Scottish." "Oh, are you working at the moment?" "No." Let's leave it at that then. And I got home and my agent rang and said, you start wardrobe fittings in a fortnight's time. And that was it. And of course, I'd done all the pre-filming, waving goodbye and everything. And after episode 2 had gone out, Innes Laurie came up and said, "Fraser, how do you fancy joining the old TARDIS crew for a year?" I said, "I can't do that." "Oh, don't you like the show?" I said, "Yes, but I've filmed already waving goodbye to the TARDIS." "Oh, hell with that, we'll do it again." And we jumped the next day or whatever into his car, and we drove down to Frensham Ponds, and this time I got into the TARDIS and waved goodbye. And I still think to this day, if I'd said, it's a 4 episodes and it's a children's series, I don't watch Doctor. If I'd said no, I would never see America, New Zealand, Australia, Scarborough, you know.
Meet me. You know.
Yeah, met
I'm
Wendy.
just saying.
Yeah. So that was how I got the part, you know, and didn't have to read or anything.
So no real inkling at that point that you'd end up being the longest running companion on the show and the legacy that you've left.
No. I still think maybe Patrick had a hand in that, saying, you know, I'll stay another year, but Fraser's going to stay as well. I think he'd, yeah.
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 And I think he went to, and I mean, I think he encouraged it. Let's put it like that.
That's
He
right.
didn't have that kind of control, but I think he did. Yeah.
Now, I've always thought that he had a, you know, well, Fraser's going to be with us as well, isn't he? You know, well, Patrick would think, maybe I. So, all right, for you know,
Yeah.
Fraser's going to stay.
But also any inkling, because obviously it's very early in Doctor Who, any inkling of how long it would run and how many incarnations coming, and I mean the fact that you're voicing the second Doctor now after being on set when you were 11.
I mean, to be honest, as we always say, I mean, if Dad hadn't been such a brilliant character actor and had that ability to be able to carry on as the Doctor, because honestly, he really did think it was going to only last literally another 4 weeks and then it would stop. And during the second week, he actually was taken up to the heads and basically said, I think, you know, the viewing figures have slumped so much that it may well, you know, finish. But literally, third episode, it suddenly shot up. And, you know, we got him to thank, really, for us all being here, really, because he was the first transformation.
It does annoy me when people say, oh, yeah, Patrick was good, but, you know, he used to make up a lot of lines and ad-lib. No, you can't ad-lib on television. You can on a theatre play, but on television, there's cutting points. As you say that line, camera 2, camera 3, yes, he might paraphrase. He might say, instead of saying, we're going to leave the TARDIS now, he might say, I think we ought to leave the TARDIS. You know, it's paraphrasing, but it's still the same thing. But, you know, I get annoyed with this. I said, no, he never made up his line. He never, you know.
No, never.
Yeah.
He never ad-libbed.
No.
No.
Yeah.
It was the line, but maybe in a slightly different way.
Yes, you know.
So, Wendy, tell us about your experiences coming into this environment where you've got Fraser already on board, you've got a show that's been running and had that uncertainty about it, and how you got the role and then brought a very different character to the TARDIS.
Yeah, obviously I didn't know about any of the uncertainty. That was something that I wasn't aware of. Of course, I was just going for an interview for a nice job. And it was a process. It was a process of lots of girls going up and reading or doing whatever we did, or just meeting, and then a short list, and then a short list, and till it got down to 6. I think Susan was one of them, wasn't she? Yeah, she was. So his girlfriend. Yeah. So he was hoping his girlfriend was going to get the part. And
I wanted Susan George. Yeah.
Of course she did. Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah.
So, and then we had a page of dialogue, just about 6 lines. Every line was an emotion, and you stood on a spot in Television Centre, and they just filmed your eyes, basically. It was when I looked at the monitor, all I could see was my eyes, and it was terrifying, actually. That's all I did. All 6 of us did that, and then I got the job. Yeah. And funnily enough, on the same day, or within a couple of days, I also was offered a part in The Prime of Miss Jean Brodie. And so it was, I don't know now, how do you decide what, you're going to do a film? And I drove my agent mad, I think, that week. And then in the end, I thought, no, do you know what? I'd really, really, really love to go into Doctor Who. So thank goodness I did.
And then when that era came to an end and John Pertwee came along, you guys essentially departed at the same time. I understand from reading around it, there was a bit of a dialogue about that, about Patrick, whether you would stay on without him and so on. Just tell us a little bit about that period.
Well, I was originally my agent had been leaning on me. So I was going to leave. And then Patrick got wind of it. He said, "Oh, just don't leave." He said, "My contract runs out in 6 months, and I'm going to leave then. Why don't we all leave together?" So I rang my agent and said, "Actually, tell BBC I'm going to stay, another 6 months." And so I stayed an extra 6 months.
Yeah, and I wasn't ever I would stay on it without Pat and Fraser because I think we had a good thing going. We had something a bit special, and it actually wouldn't have mattered who came in after to play the Doctor. It would never ever have been the same. So it was the right decision to make at the time.
And you told us a lovely story about when we touched on, coming back for things like the Five Doctors and so on, about the way you were so pleased to see each other again and how that impressed. I think you mentioned John Pertwee in particular was impressed by this.
When we jumped on each other.
Yeah,
in
these
the
guys might have heard this story.
Yeah. It was
a big
exciting.
rehearsal room, wasn't it? Yeah. There's a huge rehearsal room, and all the doctors were there, Peter Davison, John Pertwee, and we just walked in and went, "Ah!" We jumped on, tickling and laughing, and John Pertwee said, "We never had with my companion, Sarah Jane, tickle me, just like they're doing. Make me laugh. Yeah.
So on the Doctor companion stakes, you guys were probably the tightest then of those sort of sets that you would say.
I don't
You're probably
know.
the best friends compared to the other Doctors and their companions.
That's hard to say, yeah, because we weren't there with other
Sure.
doctors and other companions, so I don't know, but we certainly had something special as far as I was concerned anyway.
Michael, just quickly, for you, going on to set as a child, really, and watching your dad and everybody, that's some magical experience, isn't it? I mean, I can just say getting in a
12-year-old,
getting in a Dalek.
Dad phones up. We were on holiday down in Cornwall, and there was only one telephone in the village at that time, and it was a telephone box. And Dad always arranged to ring because he was working on, I think it was The Viking Queen, which was a movie, and he was filming it in Ireland. And he phoned up. I think it was every Friday, and we were down there for 3 weeks. And he phoned up on Friday, and he said, "The strangest thing has happened to me. I've been offered the part of Doctor Who." And of course, I turned it down. And I went, "What? You turned down Doctor Who?" He said, yes. I mean, it's not the sort of thing I want to do. And then the next Friday, he phones up. He says, "They keep phoning up and offering me more money. And I keep going no in the chance it'll get higher and higher." That was roughly. It was slightly more complicated than that. But eventually he said yes. And, I was cock a hoop. I mean, the first day I went back to school, I think it was in September, I said, "Oh, by the way, everyone, my dad's become Doctor Who." And they went, "What?" And, I had a lot of friends at school during that period, let's put it that way. And I did a good business in autographs with the kids, yeah. But it was fantastic.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
We had a bit
Daniel
of fun
always
with that
used to say,
yesterday.
he said, "I was doing this film called The Viking Queen, and no, Fraser, I wasn't playing the title role." He always used to say that.
Right, well, in a moment we'll get some questions.
Yes,
from
I'm going
you
to come
guys.
down amongst the audience.
Right, just before we do, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk a little bit about the Big Finish audio productions and how you've had the opportunities to continue to portray your characters going forward and even, portray your dad's character. I mean, what have been the highlights and how valuable has that been for you? Because we spoke to Colin Baker and Nicola Bryant last year, and they were delighted at the opportunities that gave them.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think Dad was looking down and saying, "Take the role, Michael." He'd always say, "Take the first thing you're offered," and that's the way he worked. He didn't guide his career. I think a lot of people think that actors' careers are guided by themselves. They're not at all. Basically everybody takes the first thing that their agent, offers them, and. That's the way it went with Dad. So, I mean, Nick Briggs phoned me up, and I thought it was a bit of a joke. I thought, don't be stupid, I can't play Dad. It's a bit of a gimmick. But then I thought about it, and I thought, I'd do one and see what the feedback was. And it was so positive and so lovely. It's totally unexpected that, I decided to take the role. In fact, I've just remembered, I think I did a big finish with your daughter. Yes. Charlie? Yeah. We did, it was something Mars. And you were in it, I think, and so was Fraser. No, it was about the, what were the ones that hissed? The
Ice Warriors.
It was Ice Warriors on Mars before they become Ice Warriors.
Well,
and it was a big finish production.
I don't think I did
Are you
a
sure?
big finish with Charlie.
Right.
She's done other
I've
big
definitely
finishes.
worked with her.
I might have been in the thing if I did a tiny bit that I recorded
You
when
may
I
have
was
done
doing
it at a
another
different
story.
time. I know Fraser was in it because he was playing Dad and Jamie. Yeah. At the time.
I mean, you're amazing, obviously, as your dad, as Pat, but you were amazing as well. And
Fraser was fantastic.
And you used to physically
The versatility,
when I used to see you out the corner of my eye in the booth, you would physically turn into Pat. It was, and also I used to think, bloody hell, Fraser, how do you do that? He used to play about 4 different characters on one page. Yeah.
Oh, Lisa, the director, Fraser, stop waving your hands on. I said, I can't do Patrick without going out. You go that way, I'll go that one, and we'll do this. You've got to do all that.
Yeah, so I'm in the back here. Have we got any questions for our audience? Our guests. Right, coming down.
I remember we did a scene. I did a scene with you, and I as Patrick. And at the end, you said, "Fraser, can I say something?" I thought, "Oh no, here it comes." You said a couple of lines there. The hairs on my back and on my neck stood up because he really sounded like Dad. Yeah.
It was very good. Yeah, and I saw you when I walked into the studio. I saw you look over while you were doing it, and you went like this.
Oh no! I mean, you do an impression of somebody's father or somebody you think, oh God, they're going to go, really?
Absolutely brilliant. Yeah.
Hello. I'd just like to say thank you so much for being here. I've been a Doctor Who fan for 30 years. It really was a pleasure to meet you all. Hello, I'm over here, sorry.
Oh yeah.
It really was a great pleasure to meet you downstairs, so thank you so much. My question, probably directed more towards Fraser. Of all of your missing stories, which one would you like to see again the most?
The Space Pirates. Because about 6 months ago, I was going on a long car journey, and I had the CD of the Space Pirates. I thought, and I put it in. I'm listening to it. I thought, God, that's really good. And we had Lisa Daniele, a movie star, was in it, and Jack Lord, full boost. Jack Lord was in it, and it was a really good story.
Oh, yeah, because I'd like to see Space Pirates as well, because I can't really remember the story. I don't think I've got a CD of that. I should try and get one, and then I can listen to it, because I really have little memory of the actual story, apart from Gordon Costello doing some extraordinary accent. Yes, but the accent, what was he, a Texan or a something, boiling an egg? And that is my memory of Space Pirates.
Yeah, it is the most missing story, I think, because there's no telesnaps, and the audio is in really poor condition as well. So it is a bit of it's the most missing, yeah.
Are you sure you haven't got a copy in your garage? You're always finding stuff. Or in your attic.
He's holding on to them.
Yeah, you see?
Again, I'd like to see it because I have this feeling in my head that George Lucas saw Doctor Who and nicked the idea for Star Wars little space fighters and changed slightly. I mean, nicked our idea, BBC's idea of the space. The little fighters that came. Yeah, in our show. No, not the Quark. The space fighters. Yeah. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, yeah.
We'll
Or the
find
Quark.
out if they ever get discovered. Well, we know now. Any other questions? Okay, I'm coming down. I'm coming down to the front first, and I'll work my way back up. Okay, next.
To you all, if the TARDIS materialised miraculously on stage now, and you could get the Doctor to take you back to just before you were becoming actors, what advice would you give yourselves if you went and met yourselves back in time?
Well, I started acting at 10, so I wouldn't have, I'd still be playing cowboys and Indians and in Harrogate, really. That's how long I've been at it.
Well, I certainly wouldn't say don't do it, because I think if you're going to be an actor, you've got a passion for it. And so nobody is going to tell you not to do it. I mean, people do tell you not to do it, but if you really believe that that's what you want to do, you will find any way you can to continue. But anyway, I wanted to be a ballerina, so I did. I wanted to be a ballerina. Do you know, I won a scholarship to the Royal Ballet School when I was about 11. And it was quite a thing, 5 people in the country. And I was really very good from the waist up. But I've got very slightly flat feet, and they were keen to work my feet, as it were, to try and improve my arch, which actually didn't happen. But I had to stop playing sport. I couldn't swim, ride, play tennis. I couldn't do anything for fear of developing all wrong muscles, etc. But that was my passion. But I didn't want to be in the corps de ballet. I wanted to be a prima ballerina. And so I already had my name, and I was going to be called Wendowski Padbarova, because every ballerina that I knew had Alicia Markova was Alice Marks. And I thought, Wendowski Padbarova sounds brilliant. So I was all for that. And then after the first year, it was a 5-year scholarship. I was out because my feet didn't improve. And anyway, I could never have been a prima ballerina at that time because I didn't grow much. You had to be 5'3" to be in the corps de ballet even, and I never got above 5 feet. I don't know whether you've noticed, but I'm quite short. So it would never have happened. So I've gone completely off the question. But anyway, over to you, David. Michael, sorry.
Yeah, I think I'm with everyone. If you want to become an actor, you do have to have a huge amount of determination and believe that that's what it is. But if you do succeed, it's probably one of the most enjoyable, wonderful ways to earn a living. Because basically you're a child and you go to play, and it's just fabulous. I'd never, ever thought of doing anything else. Although, as I say, today, I did want to become a scientist, but the moment I got a holiday job at the London Palladium backstage with Clive Dunn and Tommy Cooper and Anita Harris, for those that remember those people, I was smitten by, that was it. I was infected, the acting bug, and I didn't look back. It's great. It's a great life. It really is.
Wendy, you mentioned riding. Didn't I take you horse riding once?
Oh, do you know, every Wednesday afternoon, let's say, during rehearsals, we used to have the afternoon off. Fraser used to go riding on Wimbledon Common, and he'd go into the hallway of the church hall where we rehearsed and make a phone call and book his horse. And every week he'd say to me, "Why don't you come with me one Wednesday afternoon?" I said, "Fraser, I don't ride. Horses are big. I'm not sure I'm keen. I don't like them. I'm a little bit scared of them, if the truth be told." Anyway, he kept on and on and on every week, saying, "Why don't you come?" Eventually I said yes. So he said, right, great, I'm going to book the horses now. I'm going to go and book up for Wednesday afternoon. He came back and he said, that's all booked then. We're all off. We were off on Wednesday afternoon. And I said, great. And he said, yeah, 2 nice horses. He said, mine's called Snow White. And I said, oh, how lovely. What's mine called? And he said, Killer. And it was this giant horse, wasn't it?
That's always the same with actors, isn't it? Whenever you get a part where you have to ride a horse, and the director or the casting director says, "Can you ride?" You always say yes, even though you can't. So yeah.
Got a question at the back, did I see? Come there, and I come there. We've got 2 lined up, right? I was just thinking, actually, surely advice for your earlier selves would be keep copies of all of the Doctor Who's you make. You can make a lot of money off them before they all go missing. Right, there we go.
Hi there. Yeah, I got a question for Michael. Did your dad used to practice the recorder at home? And how much say did he have in the look for Doctor Who?
Yeah, he was very proud of his recorder playing, but pretty well everyone else wasn't. Yeah. He tried to teach me as well. I mean, I don't know whether you knew, but in the schools of that era that when I was a child, that was the instrument you were given to in the music lessons, and it was the bane of every parent in the whole of Great Britain, because it would sound like some strangled cat, and basically that's what Dad did. He'd come in and he'd practice his recorder, and we'd all stick our fingers in our ears. He was good. He had 3 really good ones he could do without any misfires. But most of the other was awful.
Oh, yeah, and did he have much say in the look, his look as Doctor Who? Did he have much say in how he looked as Doctor Who,
Yeah, I mean, he hummed and hawed about that. I mean, right at the beginning, the scripts arrived, and it was written rather like sort of Sherlock Holmes, with reams and reams of dialogue, with him spouting, continuous sort of explanations and things. And he said, no, I can't do that. I would never learn the lines anyway, but this is not the Doctor I want. And basically, I can remember him, he had a little book, and he would draw different types of characters in it, like I think there's a sea captain and Superman, and with all these little ideas. And it was, as I think you probably know, eventually they went to a television centre, and basically they rummaged through this box of costumes, and that's how he formed the idea. He had actually drawn this sort of tramp-like character, but it was more of a tramp with an old pram, pushing an old pram. But no, he did have, answering your question, he did have a lot of say of how he looked. And I think he chose the right way. It was completely the opposite of the one that had gone before.
And I've got a last one here from the audience. Hang on.
It's very, very nice to meet you all. The first, I've got 2 questions. The first one is for Fraser. Which one did, out of the 2 series that you more known for, Doctor Who and Emmerdale, which of them did you enjoy the most?
Definitely Doctor Who, because with Emmerdale, you had the same cast nearly for 52 weeks of the year.
Yeah.
But Doctor Who, every 6 weeks, you got a new monster, new stars, new cast, and new people to play cards with, new people, to fool around and play. Yeah, you just got a new cast every, 6, 7 weeks.
New director.
New director.
Yeah. My next question is for Fraser and Wendy. I think the Patrick Troughton period had consistency of wonderful serials. One of my favourite serials from your period is The Invasion, and what was it like? What did you enjoy working with that? Because that was when they started to phase unit in it with Nicholas Courtney with the Brigadier. And did you enjoy doing that one?
I loved doing that one. It was Dougie, wasn't it? Dougie
Camfield,
Camfield
yeah.
was the director, who was wonderful, wasn't he?
Yeah.
A real.
That's right.
Yes,
Yes.
we were. We were at the Guinness factory. Yeah, it was a great story. I mean, it had
Kevin Stoney.
Kevin Stoney, who was the most incredible villain, and him and Packer.
Yeah,
like,
Peter
they were like
Halliday.
Peter
Yeah.
Halliday. They were like a
wonderful
double
villains.
act, weren't
Yeah,
they?
wonderful
Packer
villains.
could do nothing right.
Yeah.
Ever. I mean,
Yeah.
I always felt sorry for Packer, but it was a really good story and beautifully designed, actually. When I looked at it, because you don't really notice those things so much when you're doing them, but when you watch it years later, you think, that's an amazing set. That looks incredible. I thought it was a really good story.
Yeah.
I was worried on it because there was wearing the kilt and everything, there was a helicopter shot. And of course, the BBC can't rehearse. So we said, right, helicopter comes in, rope loader comes down. Fraser, you climb up the ladder, and then Sally Faulkner, and then you, the doctor. And I went, oh, kilt up here, it's going to be downdraft, updraft. I said, I don't think Jamie would go up the ladder first. I think he'd send the young lass up first, Sally Faulkner. And he said, oh, yeah, very good idea. Of course he would, yeah. So the helicopter came and boom, she stood on the rope ladder and her miniskirt went, whoa, like this. And break for lunch. You're next, Fraser. Ha, ha, ha. And I thought, oh, no, what am I going to do? Because, Jamie's a Highlander, so therefore should be wearing nothing. And my dresser was down a riverbank fishing, and I'd read that day that the Queen had lead weights sewn into the hem of her dress so that you never saw the royal thigh on a windy day. So I said, look, you've got little lead weights, haven't you, for fishing? Yeah. I said, sew them into the head of my kilt. Yeah, just sew them in. So he sewed them in, and then we finished lunch, and I said, right, onto the runway again, cue the helicopter, and I sort of clanked, clank, clank, clank. And the ladder came down, and I stood up, and my kilt hung straight down, and the cameraman was going, couldn't believe that nothing was moving. So they never found out what happened to Jamie.
Yeah, was it dangerous walking up the rope with the helicopters?
Was it dangerous?
Yeah.
Well, it got dangerous because I started to climb up the rope ladder, and they kept filming, and it got to the point where the helicopter's nearer me now than the ground is, and you start thinking, but how do I get into this? Yeah.
But Dad never went up there. He never.
No, he didn't.
Right, Claire's hiding down there somewhere. We've actually run out of time there, unfortunately. So yeah, we've run over. So thank you ever so much, guys. Claire, do you just want to give the raffle a quick plug just before we wrap up?
Yes, absolutely. I will do dead quickly. Yes, if you go down into the main hall, to the right of the stage, the rest of our team are there. We are selling tickets for the grand raffle. Lots and lots of prizes up for grabs. We will be bringing some of our beach balls down for all of our guests to sign and the comic book artists to sign in a bit. They're £1 each. Money is going to local Scarborough charities. So exceptionally good causes. We're doing really well this year. We've done really, really well with ticket sales. So it would be nice to absolutely smash what we've done the last couple of years. So. Over £600 so far, so that's really good news. So please do come on down. Mark and I will be down in about 45 minutes, and we'll start the push, and then we'll get the raffle going.
Brilliant. So all that remains to say thank you to our cast here.
Thank
Fraser Hines, Wendy Padbury, Michael Troughton. Enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for coming to Sci-Fi Scarborough.